I was also interested, Terry McCran, some data out this week about solar capacity and how much it grew last year. We spent $10 billion on solar, number 5 in the world. In fact, if you look at it in per capita terms, second highest in terms of use of solar-generated electricity in the world. For all good it will do us in terms of global emissions. This is a real battleground issue. Now, we've talked a lot about the economy, absolutely, it's sort of first-order business for the government, but they still have this vexed issue of energy to deal with. And, I'm pleased to say Angus Taylor is still in the job and he's got energy now and emissions reduction in the one portfolio. But where are they going to go with all of this?
Well, the answer to that, Peter, I think as everybody knows, is how extreme is the lunacy that we embrace? I mean, the basic lunacy of all this is to embark on any sort of unilateral reduction in emissions in a world in which, as we all know, around these tables, China and India are not only not cutting their emissions, but are increasing them and will keep increasing them all the way to 2030, and they'll happily manufacture the solar panels and the wind turbines that we in the West will, in our insanity, install and send up prices and further destabilise our electricity grid. The one saving grace, I have to say, the one saving grace in the solar lunacy is that we're no longer having these extraordinarily high feed-in tariffs from all those rooftop solar panels, which, when they're not working, they're not supplying solar energy, quote unquote, to the actual house, have been fed into the grid. We no longer have those very high prices. That's a very, very small saving grace. But the basic reality is we have to have, and we see this with the uncertainty about supply in Victoria coming into the summer, we have to have the reinvestment in existing coal-fired power stations, and we have to have somewhere in the grid at least one new coal-fired power station.
It's interesting, Judith, while you were away last week, the BP energy report comes out and it confirms that India, and I'm not even comparing China and all the other sort of growing economies heading forth with their industrialisation, but India put on the equivalent of 6 new Hazelwood power stations, coal-fired power stations, in terms of their coal-based emissions in 1 year, which just amplifies that everything we do here to turn our own economy upside down for the futility of reducing global emissions by, about this much, is dangerous in terms of where we're all going to be. And, Andrew was just talking about household indebtedness, our capacity to pay for our future.
Well, I thought there was some quite important news out today, and that was the comments by AGL and Origin, which both companies predicting that wholesale electricity prices were going to remain high, possibly even increase. And both the spokespeople admitted that, well, yes, that was in the context of indeed a massive investment in renewables. And I mean, those figures that you showed do point to that, and in world terms, there has been very substantial increase in renewable energy generation. Now, that industry has been saying for, literally a decade that more renewable energy will lead to lower prices. But the thing is, it never has. And what Origin and AGL are now saying, it's complicated and we really need new supply in terms of firm generation, right, 24/7 generation, and we can't expect that the increased incidence of renewable energy system generation in the grid will lower prices. So I really think we've been sold a pup here, and I agree with you. I mean, I think Angus Taylor is onto this. It won't be overnight, but we need to do two things. We need to bring new supply sources, firm supply, 24/7 supply sources into the market, and we need to improve the competition, because those big energy players have the capacity to game the market, and we saw that particularly when Hazelwood closed and wholesale prices really leapt up dramatically. So,
they've never gone down.
And they've never gone down. I mean, I think, this government is the hope of the side. I mean, the election was a real sliding doors moment, and the renewable energy players were licking their lips at the prospect of a Labor government. They were going to have a 45% emissions target by 2030, and they were going to have 50% electricity generation for renewables, and that probably would have involved the reinstitution of the RET, the Renewable Energy Target, and the certificates. So, you know, we, I think, really have dodged a bullet, and I think, you know, the conversation now is how do we deal with this issue, both in terms of prices and reliability?